I came home earlier than usual, which in itself felt strange. Normally I'd stay at the office past 7, sometimes even later, but today a meeting got canceled, and I left at 5:30 with an unexpected sense of lightness. I was actually looking forward to coming home, taking off my shirt, smelling dinner, and hearing Emily's soft, familiar, "Hey babe," the one she always said when she was tired but happy to see me. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her voice that greeted me. It was silence, not peaceful silence. The heavy, unnatural kind that presses on your ears the moment you step inside. The apartment felt empty in a way it never had before. No sounds from the kitchen, no gentle clatter of pans, no quiet music. She always cooked with music on. Always. I checked the time. 6:45 p.m. Weird. She was almost always home by now. I walked through the living room. On the couch lay her beige cardigan, the one she wore when she felt cold. She wouldn't have left without it. She definitely planned to come home. So where was she? I pulled out my phone to call her, and just then it rang on its own, as if it was answering my thoughts. Emily glowed on the screen. "Hey, babe." Her voice was too bright, too energetic, with that forced cheerfulness people use when they're trying to cover something up. "I'm still at work, but I'm on my way home." "You're running late," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Just a busy day." She gave a quick laugh. It sounded fake, like a line in a badly acted scene. "I actually have a surprise for you." A surprise. The word landed strangely, almost out of place, like she was trying to set the tone for the evening ahead, as if distracting me in advance. "Should I start cooking or order something?" I asked, trying to read the mood. "No need. Tonight, food isn't important," she said quietly, with a tremor she probably hoped I wouldn't notice. But I did. I heard it instantly. Something cold slid down my spine, settling deep inside my chest. Her words weren't suspicious. Her tone was. Nervous. Unsteady. Loaded with something unspoken. I stood in the dim living room, phone still in my hand, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a creeping sense of unease. Not fear, not jealousy, just that deep, instinctive awareness that tonight was going to unfold in a way I couldn't predict, and definitely wouldn't like. And whatever was coming was already too late to stop. Emily walked into the apartment about 20 minutes later, and the moment she closed the door behind her, I felt something was off. Not guessed, not suspected. Felt. On the skin. She looked disassembled. Not messy from work. Messy from something she didn't want to name. Her blouse was wrinkled, not from sitting at a desk, but from being grabbed. Her hair was slightly undone, like someone's fingers had been in it. Her lipstick was smudged. Not completely, just enough to signal she'd tried to fix it quickly in a car mirror. And most telling of all, she wasn't wearing tights. She had left this morning with them on. I remember because she asked me whether the color looked too formal. None of this belonged to her usual rough day at the office look. "Long day?" I asked, pretending not to notice the obvious. She froze for half a second, half a heartbeat, then walked over and hugged me tightly. Too tightly. Not like someone coming home to their husband. More like someone trying to hide inside his arms, trying to bury a guilt she wasn't ready to confront. "You know I love you," she said into my shoulder. Her voice wavered. "And you know I always want what's best for us." My stomach tightened. That sentence, that exact phrasing, never brought anything good. I had heard variations of it from friends, colleagues, people who prefaced bad news with soft words to soften the blow. Emily pulled away, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and walked toward the living room, not meeting my eyes. Something in her steps felt rehearsed, like she had practiced the scene in her head on the way home. I followed her silently, watching every micro-expression she tried to hide. The shallow breaths, The trembling fingers. The way she kept adjusting her blouse as if that would erase the wrinkles left by someone else's hands. She sat at the edge of the couch, legs together, back straight. A posture she only used when she was scared or ashamed. I said quietly. What's going on? She opened her mouth, then closed it again, jaw tightening. It looked like she was fighting with herself, or stalling, or hoping I'd say something that would give her a way out. Instead, she whispered, I need to tell you something. About today. There it was. The first crack in the mask. Small, but impossible to ignore. Her eyes finally met mine. Shiny, nervous, filled with something between fear and desperation. And suddenly the silence that filled the room felt heavier than before, as if the walls themselves were bracing for what she was about to say. Emily sat on the edge of the couch the way someone sits in a waiting room before hearing a diagnosis, palms pressed against her knees, eyes fixed on a spot on the floor as if it might open up and swallow her. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, almost flat. The tone of someone trying to make a confession sounds smaller than it really is. I talked to my manager today, Daniel. Daniel. Her charming, overly confident, always too friendly boss. The one who called her M, even in front of me. The one who leaned in too close when he spoke to her. The one she always claimed was just intense because he's passionate about his work. Right. She took a shaky breath. We were discussing relationships. I raised an eyebrow. Relationships? I repeated. At work? She winced slightly at my tone, but kept going, like someone walking barefoot across broken glass and hoping the other side is worth it. He believes every couple has a dominant and a submissive partner, a leader and a follower. And sometimes, she swallowed hard, sometimes those roles need to switch. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. Let her continue. Let her dig the hole fully before she realized she was in it. Daniel thinks you're... She hesitated, eyes darting away. Too gentle. Not weak, not soft. Too gentle. A carefully chosen phrase, rehearsed in her head. Daniel's words, not hers. He said you don't challenge me. That women secretly want a stronger hand, a more assertive partner. I let out a cold exhale. There it was. The alpha male mentor fantasy, straight out of some corporate self-help cult. And? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Emily's throat bobbed as she swallowed. He suggested I explore the dynamic, with him, just to see how it feels. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt, not because of jealousy, but because of the sheer disrespect wrapped in fake concern. Let me guess, I said dryly. He delivered this wisdom while standing way too close. Her silence was answer enough. Emily wrung her hands together, knuckles turning white. He told me you're a nice guy, she whispered. And nice guys get walked over. He said I needed someone who could take control, someone confident, someone assertive, someone like him. The implication hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning behind my back all day. I studied her face, the guilt, the fear, the confusion. And also something else, the trace of belief. The mark of someone who had allowed another man's voice to settle too deeply into her thoughts. Emily, I said finally, your boss thinks he's an expert on your marriage? She nodded, eyes glistening. He said he understands women better than most men, that he sees things others miss. I laughed, a short, humorless sound that startled her. Of course he said that. Predators always do. Emily's hands trembled as she clutched her knees, her gaze fixed on the carpet like it held some invisible salvation. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, filled with things neither of us dared to name aloud. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. He suggested an experiment. I I allowed myself to imagine it. The words landed like stones in my chest. A cold weight spread from my ribs down to my stomach. My first reaction wasn't anger, not yet. It was shock, and then a creeping, icy clarity, a calm that made the blood drain from my face. I didn't move, I didn't speak. I just let the sentence sink, let it paint the picture in my mind, let it settle. And that's it? I asked finally, my voice low, steady, controlled. I didn't raise it. I didn't even look at her. I let the words do the work, giving her room to falter. She couldn't meet my eyes. The first tear slid down her cheek. Her lips trembled. He's waiting for me in the car, she admitted, the confession breaking through her lips like a dam bursting. He wants to talk to you, to propose a format, something about this dynamic. I felt something click inside me. Not jealousy, not rage. Something colder, precise, surgical. I didn't shout, I didn't threaten, I didn't move my hands wildly. I simply nodded, understanding the situation completely, and then said quietly, "Show me." Her eyes widened. She didn't know what I meant. "I'll go outside. We'll see him," calmly. She shook her head, voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for it. I just—" Her words trailed into sobs, but I stayed calm. That calm was heavier than any anger, more dangerous than any threat. I realized something then. Emily hadn't just let another man enter her life. She'd invited him. She'd allowed him to manipulate her thoughts, her doubts, her fantasies. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just a lapse. It was a choice. And now it was my turn to respond. I stood and straightened my shirt. No theatrics, no fury. Just a quiet, unyielding decision. "Let's go see him," I said. Her sobs softened into shaky breaths. She followed me silently, knowing, perhaps fearing, that nothing about this night would ever be the same. The elevator dinged. The hallway lights flickered. Every step toward the door felt like stepping into a storm we had both been pretending didn't exist. Outside, the cool air hit my face, sharp and clean. And I knew, whatever happened next, I would not be the man people expected me to be. I would not be played. I would not bend. Tonight, the rules would change. I stepped out into the courtyard. The cold evening air hit my face like a slap. Crisp, sharp, bracing. There, under the dim glow of the street lamp, stood Daniel's car. A brand new black SUV gleaming, polished, intimidating. The window rolled down smoothly, almost theatrically, and he leaned out, a smug smile playing on his lips. He didn't try to hide it. He never did. "Well, well," he said, voice casual but full of arrogance. "Care to talk?" His gaze swept over me, assessing, sizing me up. Classic alpha male energy. The kind you see in Instagram photos of men in suits with sports cars, with just enough ego to make ordinary men squirm. I didn't flinch, didn't step back. I met his gaze steadily. "You really think you can just waltz into someone else's life?" I said, voice low, calm, controlled. He shrugged, grin widening, as though this were a friendly debate. "Your wife wants more. I'm just offering her what you can't." Those words, calculated, arrogant, poisonous, would have destroyed many men. Many. But not me. I stepped closer to the car, letting the night air hum around us. My voice dropped even lower, colder. "You're wrong. You think gentleness is weakness. You confuse respect with fear. You think dominance is measured by how much you can push someone around. But today, you picked the wrong person to test." Daniel's grin faltered, just slightly. His alpha mask twitched, the first crack showing in a facade that usually never breaks. I leaned a little closer, careful, measured, letting the weight of my words sink in. "Leave, now, drive away, or the consequences for your career, for your reputation, will be catastrophic. For a moment, the street was silent except for the hum of the idling engine. He knew. He knew exactly who I was, what I could do, and that I wasn't bluffing. He'd underestimated me, misjudged me, and that was his mistake. The smile vanished. The confident posture wavered. Then, slowly, almost reluctantly, he started the car. No words, no threats, no bravado. Just silence. I watched him drive away. His SUV disappeared into the night, leaving only the faint echo of tires against asphalt and the lingering scent of arrogance that had just been put in its place. I turned back toward the apartment. Calm, collected, resolute. The storm had passed, but the tension still lingered. The real work, the conversation with Emily, awaited. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing in our life would ever feel the same again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. I didn't flail my arms or try to intimidate. I simply stood there, letting Daniel's car disappear into the night, the echo of his tires fading like a warning. The cold air wrapped around me, sharp and steady, and I felt a clarity I hadn't known in months, maybe years. When I finally turned back toward the apartment, Emily was there in the doorway, pale, trembling. Her eyes were wide, fixed on me, on the night, on the empty space where Daniel's SUV had been. He left? She whispered. He left, I said, voice calm, unwavering. Her lips parted, like she was searching for reassurance, for the anger she thought I should feel. Are you mad? I walked past her slowly, deliberately, studying her like I had studied the pieces of a puzzle she didn't know were broken. My hands were steady. My tone was measured. Emily, I said, stopping just short of her. You let him into our lives, not the other way around. You allowed him to manipulate you, to plant ideas, to make you doubt. Everything. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak, to explain, to apologize. I was stupid. He pressured me. He flattered me. He said it was what strong couples do. I got confused. I held up a hand, cutting her off, not out of anger, but to underline the truth. Emily, you believed a man who doesn't even respect himself. You let him twist your thoughts about us. That's on you. She flinched, then sobbed, small and fragile, the weight of her own choices crushing her. I didn't move closer. I didn't comfort her. I let the silence and my words do the work. I gave you my love, I said softly, but each word carried steel. I gave you trust, and you traded it for manipulation. That's not love, Emily. That's surrender. She tried to reach for my hand. Please, I love you. Love isn't enough, I replied, voice steady, cutting through her desperation. Respect is everything. You lost it the moment you invited him in. And when respect is gone, love doesn't survive. I turned away, leaving her standing there, trembling, realizing that my calm was stronger than any rage, my control more absolute than any charm or manipulation. That night, a line had been drawn, not in anger, not in fury, but in understanding. And in that line, our lives would never cross in the same way again. When I returned to the apartment, Emily was standing on the staircase, her figure pale and fragile under the dim hallway light. Her hands clutched the railing as though it could anchor her to reality, stop her from drifting into the chaos she had helped create. He left? She asked, voice barely audible. He left, I confirmed, my tone steady, almost clinical. She looked at me then, searching my face for something. Relief, anger, forgiveness, anything that might soothe her trembling heart. Instead, she found only calm. Cold, unwavering calm. Are you angry? She whispered, voice cracking. I met her gaze, my eyes holding hers without blinking. I wanted her to understand something fundamental. something that no apology or tear could erase. "Emily," I said, voice deliberate, "this isn't about anger. It's about choice. You let him into our life. You allowed yourself to be manipulated. You trusted someone who doesn't even respect himself. That was your decision." Her body sagged, the weight of my words pressing down on her like the night air outside, heavy and inescapable. She tried to speak, but all that came out were broken fragments. I, I was a fool. He pressured me. He flattered me. He said strong couples do things differently. I got confused. I raised a hand, not to silence her in anger, but to let the truth settle. "Emily, you weren't forced. You chose. You believed a man who sees nothing but power games, and you let him twist your thoughts about us. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." Tears ran freely down her cheeks now, hot and relentless. She reached for me, as if clinging to the man she once knew could undo her decisions with a touch. "But I love you," she cried. I stepped back, letting the distance between us reinforce the lesson she needed to learn. "Love isn't enough," I said softly, each word precise, weighted with truth. "Respect is everything. You lost respect the moment you allowed him in. And without respect, love can't survive. Not now, not ever." She dropped her hands to her sides, defeated, broken, finally realizing the gravity of her choices. I didn't speak again. I simply let her sit in the silence, let her absorb the magnitude of what she had done. For the first time in months, I felt clarity. The storm had passed, and in its wake, the path forward was undeniable. Her choices had consequences, and I had to live with mine. I packed her bag quietly. No shouting, no dramatics, no performance for an audience. Just calm, deliberate actions, each item folded and placed carefully, each motion a silent declaration of the boundaries she had crossed. Emily hovered nearby, eyes wide, lips trembling, the raw panic of someone realizing the consequences of their choices. Where should I go?" she asked, voice barely more than a whisper. I didn't look at her immediately. I held the bag, paused, and let the weight of the moment settle. Then I spoke, voice measured, unshakable. "Go somewhere they play these games about dominance and submission. Somewhere you've already taken the first steps you shouldn't have." Her hand shot out, desperate, grasping for mine. "But I love you," she cried, the words breaking, urgent, pleading. "Love isn't enough, Emily," I said softly but firmly. "Respect is everything. You lost respect. And when respect is gone, love can't survive. Not with me, not with us." Her fingers brushed mine for a moment before she withdrew, tears spilling freely now, the helplessness finally settling in. She had chosen her path. I had chosen mine. I left her apartment, walking into the cool night with a bag slung over my shoulder and a heart heavy but resolute. Each step was decisive, measured, unburdened by doubt. I didn't glance back. There was nothing to salvage in that home. Nothing to mend. The city lights reflected off wet streets, a mirror of the chaos and clarity intertwined. Somewhere in the distance, a car honked. Somewhere else, a couple laughed. Life moved on. But our chapter had ended. I didn't regret leaving. I didn't regret setting the line. I knew that the storm would have returned if I stayed. That manipulation and temptation would have grown until it consumed what little was left of us. Walking alone, I realized something essential. Leaving wasn't about punishment. It was about preserving the integrity of who I was. It was about refusing to participate in a dynamic built on lies, flattery, and coercion. I didn't look back, but I carried with me the understanding that some chapters must close before the right story can begin. The night air was sharp, the streets empty, and I felt a strange relief in the solitude. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without compromise. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. But Others must be shut for good to make room for what truly belongs in your life. The divorce was swift, painful, yes, but fair. There was no theatrics, no drawn-out drama, just clean, cold, necessary separation. Emily and I closed that chapter quietly, with the kind of clarity only betrayal can force. A month later, I found myself on the coast, a small seaside town where the air smelled of salt and possibility. I rented a modest apartment overlooking the waves, hoping to wash away the lingering tension of what had passed. The sea had a rhythm that my mind desperately needed, a reminder that life could move forward, even when it had been shattered. That's when I met Sophia. She was a surf instructor, tall, confident, with eyes that mirrored the ocean itself. Vast, deep, and unshakably present. She didn't speak of dominance, control, or roles in relationships. She didn't compare me to anyone. She didn't need to. She simply existed, and in her presence, life felt simple again. The first lesson was about balance, about reading the waves, about trusting yourself. And as I wobbled on the board, falling and rising, I realized she was teaching me more than surfing. She was teaching me to live again, to trust myself, to move forward without the shadows of manipulation or the weight of misplaced loyalty. Sophia never questioned my past. She didn't judge. She didn't press for explanations or confessions. She just showed up, present and grounded, letting me learn how to ride the waves, literally and metaphorically. Through her, I began to understand something profound. Sometimes, to meet the right person, you have to step away from the one who betrayed the trust you gave freely. Sometimes, the pain of the wrong choice clears the path for something real, something lasting. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. I learned to feel the wind on my face, the pull of the waves beneath me, the rhythm of life outside the confines of manipulation and deceit. I learned to laugh without reservation, to speak without hesitation, to trust without fear. And in that space, between sea and sky, between what was lost and what could be gained, I discovered that the right person doesn't force you to doubt yourself. They don't challenge your integrity or demand control. They simply walk beside you, and together, you navigate the world. I realized, finally, that some doors close so the right ones can open. And sometimes, the only way to find peace is to let the storm pass, to leave the past behind, and to embrace the horizon.